Welcome back to the How We Can Heal podcast. Today, our guest is Mahshid Hager. Mahshid is a licensed marriage and family therapist and a Somatic Experiencing International faculty member. She also serves on the board of the United States Association of Body Psychotherapy, a nonprofit dedicated to developing and advancing the art, science, and practice of body psychotherapy. Mahshid was born in Tehran, Iran. Her lived experience as an immigrant and an expatriate give her a unique understanding of cultural and social impacts and systemic inequities. Today, we focus on our nervous system's response to extreme stress and trauma and how global high-intensity activation shows up in our bodies. She also shares her journey from Tehran to Germany to the US, and we explore avenues for rhythmicity and rest amidst our ongoing exposure to trauma and social and political challenges. I so appreciated our conversation, and I'm thrilled to share it with you here today. Please join me in welcoming Mahshid Hager to the show. Welcome to the How We Can Heal podcast. I'm so excited to have you here and to talk with you about global high-intensity activation, trauma, healing, all of those things.
Sounds great.
That you've spent a lot of time thinking about and working with and teaching. So my first question for you is just how did you find somatic experiencing, or how did it find you?
Oh, goodness. I was at a state in my life where not much was going right.
Yeah.
2003 is kind of known as the no good, very bad year in my
Mine was
family.
2002. Hey, we're in it
Right
so
there with
close.
each other. Yes.
Yeah.
In my father passed away from a 10-year battle with cancer, and my marriage fell apart. I became a single mom of two little ones.
Oh,
My house almost burned down in a wildfire.
wow.
I
That's
was
a
still
lot.
finishing grad school, and it was just like nothing worked. I'd been a I was in grad school. I'd been in therapy before. I'd had experiences and internships with therapy, and none of those tools worked. I was just constantly overwhelmed, unable to stay present to my life with my kids, with my family. I was representing myself in court and just falling apart. And I needed, in my mind, I needed an emergency measure because the
Yeah.
court thing was really imminent, and I needed to pull it together and, be representative of myself and my kids appropriately. And kind of started asking around about if people knew a good therapist that could kind of patch me back up.
Yes. Like help.
And
Oh,
and people were like, "What about your old therapist?" And I'd had wonderful experiences with therapists, and I could kind of think about those sessions and remember what they would tell me. I would say none of those things are working. I am doing all of the things I've learned in therapy, and they're not working. And so one of my friends referred me to his therapist who was here in town, who was a somatic experiencing practitioner. And he didn't tell me she was a somatic experiencing practitioner. He just said she's very different. The way that she approaches therapy is different from any other talk therapy that I've experienced. And so I was like, what do I gotta lose? Let's go. Let's see what this is. And yeah, that was, she was the first person to say, and what do you notice in your body?
yeah.
And I remember just being so confused by that question at first. Like, what do you mean? My body's fine. My body's normal. I feel nothing, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so it was just this like slow reintroduction to noticing my physiology, noticing my body. And I say reintroduction because I grew up in Iran in a multi-generational household, was my, 0 to 7 years. And the body was very much part of that culture, very much part of the equation.
Yeah.
And then we fled the country and went to Germany. And that's the detour from the body, right? It's
Wow.
just like
Yeah.
now we are on the go. Now you're in a different plane where survival is priority, and we don't have time to dwell on the past, and we don't have time to check in on the body, and we don't have time to rest. You
Yes.
just go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And so I had lost that skill of noticing what cues does my body send to me about these different experiences, that I'm having. And yeah, my first somatic experiencing practitioner taught me how to reintegrate the body into the conversation. And it kind of made an impact right away. I remember walking out of that first session just feeling taller. You know, some
Mm.
of the practices that we did in that first session just really expanded something inside. And I remember walking out thinking, okay, I can handle my life for the next few weeks. And I was a single mom. I didn't have the funds to see her weekly, but I found that even every 3 weeks or so was enough.
Yeah.
I could practice the tools she'd given me to continue benefiting from them throughout the weeks. And then I stayed in therapy post divorce and post all of that because I really appreciated this new tool and wanted to know more and learn more. And I wanted to help my kids through the transition with these tools and direct them to their body and notice all these different ways that they're protecting themselves. And then eventually the training came back around in my town in San Diego, and I signed up for it, and the rest is history, as they say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now you're teaching on the faculty.
And now I'm teaching. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
It's so interesting to track for all of us, right? How our personal journey interweaves with
Mhm.
that professional path and how moments where we go, oh, that really helps me. I want to learn more about it.
Yes.
Right. Because for me, it was
Yeah.
2002. It was my brother who passed away, and I went
Mhm.
to yoga, and yoga was doing it
Mm.
for me. And my
Yeah.
parents are both therapists, very good therapists at that.
Yeah.
I was very familiar with the therapy world, but I needed something different. Like you said,
Yeah.
I needed
Yeah.
movement and breath and to notice what was moving through and to have space to let it move through.
Absolutely.
I mean, I feel
Absolutely.
like we live in a culture of global high, and we can maybe talk about that more.
Yes.
So I think, it's one of the reasons I feel like people love yoga and focus on the calming side of yoga. Like, oh, it can stir things up and then you
Mhm.
can leave balanced at the end because there's actually maybe 10 or 20 minutes in most classes these days at the end for you to lie down or rest or
Yeah.
like we don't have, I don't
Yeah.
think American culture has that integrated of just
Right.
rest time, really casual social time. I think of so many countries, I lived in Italy for a while where people just walk. It's like, what do you
Yes.
do on Sunday? Oh, we have breakfast, we go for a walk,
Yeah.
go to church. you know, Everything's closed for the most
Yeah.
part still, even
Sundays,
today.
everything's closed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we just rest, we just hang out. And I
Mhm.
feel like, American culture, even coming back to that, it can be very go, go, go.
Absolutely.
So, to back up a little, can you just describe to listeners what is global high intensity activation? What does that look like?
Yeah. So global high is a global response from the physiology, something that happens where our nervous system gets a surge or a flood of energy and activation, and the whole physiology has to respond.
Yeah.
And it, when people experience that, the physiology enters into sort of like end stage survival strategies, like the most extreme survival strategies. So, subcategories of global high or the events that can put a person in a global high presentation are things like extreme fetal distress, suffocation, drowning, high fevers that are dangerous, electrocutions. I mean, like really where the physiology goes into a flood of response and extreme survival strategies. And, we see this a lot in folks who've had those experiences, but also folks who have grown up in unsafe conditions,
Yeah.
without safety, without attunement, where caregivers were in the midst of their own survival strategies,
Yeah.
survival responses. And so the baseline for this type of nervous system is that of activation. The sense of calm and rest is really difficult to access, really
Hmm.
hard to come by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's having a hard time settling down, being in go mode, always doing,
Mhm.
right? Always
Mhm.
busy, which again just feels so. I feel like American culture is in that place, and probably because of the way the country was founded on genocide, right? I feel like
Yeah.
there's just this global high pattern. And it's easy if you're in that place in your nervous system, especially maybe more so in some areas, big cities, to just always be going, right?
Yeah, I mean, it becomes the norm.
Yeah.
It becomes uh, not only the norm, but people get rewarded for, capitalism really relies on a bunch of us being constantly in global high presentation in our nervous system because you can get a raise and you can get promotions and your friends think you're, superwoman and how does she do it all? There's a
Yeah.
lot of kudos for that type of go, go, go. And so people lose access to that rhythmicity. Like for me, a lot of somatic experiencing is about how can I create the conditions so that this nervous system in front of me can experience the rhythmicity it was born with, the
Hmm.
rhythmicity, that innate rhythm that's geared towards coherence, greater health, greater presence. How can we create the conditions so this person can experience that rhythmicity again?
Mm.
Because yeah, I can go, 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 go and get rewards and get, promotions and raises. And that kind of physiology was supposed to be used on a short-term basis.
Yeah.
And the long-term chronic use of it is a lot of wear and tear on the physiology. And eventually some things begin to demand attention, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we don't have rest or if we don't have quality sleep, that will really
Mhm.
start to impact someone mentally, physically, emotionally, at every
Absolutely. Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
It makes me think about, yeah, just the rewards we get from culture in going and going and going, and also the opportunities in
Mhm.
technology to never turn off, right?
Oh, yes.
Like you can be in bed with your phone,
Oh, yes.
chatting
Yeah.
with someone, or
Hmm.
responding to a distressing message, or so I feel like boundaries plays a role here in terms of managing maybe that global.
Hmm.
But I'm curious from the somatic experiencing standpoint, or just from a nervous system standpoint, what are some windows in? Like if someone's listening and they're like, this is me, I'm on global high, I've got a lot of promotions at work, but I'm not feeling great in my body, or I know there's
Hmm.
trauma there.
Hmm.
What are some windows into that shift, that downshift that you
Yeah.
found really helpful?
Yeah. So I want to name that for folks who are global high, the slowing down will actually signal danger.
Yeah.
So, there's safety in that more elevated mobilization response. It's what's worked. It's what's saved us. It's been a good friend,
Yeah.
for many. And so that slowing down will actually feel very uncomfortable in the physiology at first. I remember in that very first session with my SEP, I kind of laid out my life. These are the things. I'm in an internship. I'm finishing grad school. The kids are in school. I'm, 85% custody during the week. They're with me. I have to get home. I have to do all of the things, right?
Um,
And towards the end of that session, she said, okay, here's what I need you to do for homework. You have to take a 10-minute rest between leaving work and getting your kids. And the car ride doesn't count.
yeah.
So either when you leave work, go for a 10-minute walk before you get in the car.
Yeah.
Or when you arrive at the kids' after school care, sit in your car, listen to music, go for a walk, do nothing, listen to birds, just sit for 10 minutes.
Yes.
And I thought she was out of her mind.
Like how? Why?
And I was like, I don't have 10 minutes. I
Yeah.
have to get home. They have homework. I have to cook dinner. Sometimes I even have to go grocery shopping first. I've got my own notes to finish.
Yes.
There is no time. There is no time.
Yes.
And she said, uh, I am telling you, if you don't do this, you're going to get sick.
Yeah.
And then you won't be present for your kids at all.
Yeah.
And so then I argued with her. I was like, I can see myself doing this for 3 minutes. And she said, 7 minutes.
I love the bargaining that
I know,
happens in therapy.
I
6.5.
know. And we agreed on 5 minutes.
Okay.
And I remember
Start.
those 5 minutes being so long. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just sitting in my car, waiting for the time to pass, feeling so uncomfortable because your
Mm.
physiology is used to the go, go, go. That's almost easier,
Yeah.
than just the stillness.
Yes.
But then I noticed the difference right away, which is,
You're like,
the gift on
my
somatics when
therapist
you,
is right.
yes, I would notice that I would pick up the kids with a different capacity,
Yes.
that
Wow.
I would come home and it wouldn't be rush, 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 that there would be, playfulness, that I would be able to be present with them, that they responded to that with their own curiosity and their playfulness. So I really couldn't deny that
Yeah.
it had an impact, even that 5 minute break.
Yeah.
And so, my suggestion for someone who's listening to this and recognizing themselves is see if you can, even a minute and a half, even just a couple of minutes, between work and lunch, maybe, or after lunch before you open up your email again. Can you just notice what your body does in stillness?
Yes.
Can you just listen and see where is it holding tension? Where is that energy? I'm not expecting a state of calm right away.
Yeah. Mm.
But but curiosity in those moments of stillness
Yes.
is going to give us a lot of information
Yeah.
to work with.
I
Yeah.
love that you shared just the feeling of not having time, because that's actually one of my own like self-awareness cues that I'm in hyperarousal.
Yeah.
When I'm like, I don't have time. I don't have time. Oh, I have so much to do and I don't have time. It's like, you know what? You do have time. You have time for the next thing. What's the next thing?
That's right.
Okay,
That's
now
right.
I have time for the next thing. And it turns
Yeah.
out the same amount of time can feel so different depending on
Yes.
the state of your nervous system.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
for me, that thought, I don't have time. I mean, sometimes we are very pressed for time. We're like, okay, it's a 17-minute drive there and we have 15 minutes to
Yeah.
get there. And that can cause a sense of activation. But if we can notice that activation, we can work with our nervous system, like talk to it, coach it, give it
Hmm.
some movement or breath or whatever it needs, and then approach from a different state, the whole experience is different. Right.
Yeah. Everything changes.
And I think there's people who would argue you bend time and you get there on time because you're calm.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's not my area of expertise. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm super into it.
Yeah.
But there is something really interesting about these state shifts for us and how we
Hmm.
experience time, how we experience our relationships. And you just mentioned too, when you're able to go, okay, I'll bargain with my therapist, but it'll be 5 minutes. And then you notice this is changing something. Oh, there's more room for connection. There's more room
Yeah.
for play. Like this maps with everything we know about our nervous system, right?
That's right.
If we're in sympathetic drive, some form of fight or flight or hyperarousal or activation, whatever words we want to use, if we're there, we don't feel a lot of access to play. There's stress, there's demand, there's tension, there's no space. And I'm going to tell you how there's no
Yeah.
space, and I'll spend 5 minutes telling you there's no
That's
space,
right.
but I won't spend 5 minutes looking at the clock, noticing
Hmm.
how slow the second hand is
Yeah.
starting to go, taking a really long breath in and a really
Mm.
long breath out because it feels like a waste of time when
Yeah.
it's the same amount of time that you could have spent
Yeah.
arguing your position, right? But you don't.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I think there's something about the collective nervous system you're speaking to in
Hmm.
your family as a single parent running the household, right? And then seeing with 5 minutes,
The
right?
shift. Yeah. Incredible.
Stuck in traffic for that. And
Yeah.
it just happens and you just have to spend that time, right? So it's
Yeah.
might as well find intentional time
Yeah.
to open the door to rest, right?
Right.
To invite
Right.
it in. It might not show up right
Right.
away, but just that possibility. And then noticing, wow, this is really changing my life and my kids' life. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really powerful.
Yeah. And it's about coming back into that, like, um, the go mechanism of our physiology is all under this branch of the sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
The mobilization physiology.
Yeah.
One of my teachers and mentors, Kathy Kane, says this phrase that I really like, which says, the sympathetic nervous system is supposed to pick you up and move you.
Yes.
Right? That's its function. That
Yeah.
go is by design.
Yeah.
What happens then, though, if we're using the gas all of the time, then the brakes don't ever get to come on. The
Yeah.
parasympathetic rest and digest system never gets to engage. And these two systems are supposed to be in reciprocal relationship to each other. And
Mhm.
now we're just using one all of the time. And that 5 minute rest actually allows for the shift to happen. And our physiology really likes that, right? That phase shift into rest physiology is essential for our well-being, for our health and our growth.
It really is.
And that mobilization physiology, the system that picks you up and moves you, the byproduct of that is less connection, not just to loved ones, but less connection to myself, less connection to the here and now, less connection to playfulness. That's its function.
Yeah.
And so we need to bring about opportunities, as you said, for our nervous system to shift gears into something else so that we can actually be present to our lives.
Yeah. And I love this concept of just the smallest bite you can chew. Like for you, it was 3
Yes.
minutes, your therapist negotiated it to 5. Okay, we start there. We start with the
Yeah.
smallest bite to chew that feels possible. That's like, well, okay, I guess I could do that.
Yeah.
It makes me think of Cara Lai, a meditation teacher we had on this season, and she's done a year-long meditation retreat. Like she has meditated her face off in her
That's amazing.
right. And
So much respect for people who can do that.
wow, right? Wow. And it's so interesting because the learning of the year-long retreat, folks can listen to the episode was like,
Yeah.
wow, maybe I don't need to meditate this much. And so many other lessons in there, right? About things that connect with this, about connection, about, working with ourselves rather than against ourselves. But the point, I was thinking of her because she said that early in her meditation, she had this big shift in her system and it lasted a few days. And it was this taste of like, whoa, I want more of that.
Hmm.
And at that time, she was sitting 8 minutes a day,
Mm,
8 minutes a day. And there have been times for me, I have a 2-year-old where it's like 1 minute a day, I'm going to commit to that because I know I can do it.
that's
I
great.
could do it while I'm breastfeeding. I
Yeah.
I give myself parameters of like what's okay and what's not counts and what doesn't, because otherwise
Whatever
it's a little
works.
slippery.
Yes.
So it's like
Yeah.
breastfeeding counts, car does not, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
walking doesn't in this case, like, but just sitting still in some
Mhm.
capacity, connecting with my breath, noticing my thoughts. And the funny thing is, and this is like, again, I have a pretty significant history with yoga and meditation. I have a little timer on my phone I'll use. I can forget that I'm meditating within like 90 seconds.
Yeah.
I can be like, oh, I was totally just planning tomorrow
Yeah.
and not noticing my breath. I mean, that's part of meditation, to be fair,
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
going away and coming back. But
Yeah.
picking that small bite that you can chew.
Yeah.
And then, when you like it, when you notice the benefits of it, allowing that to expand a little more. So it's doable. I think it's easy for us to think,
Yeah.
oh, this is some big lofty goal, or my nervous system doesn't
Yeah.
think it can go there. So just finding that window to start.
Yeah, I mean, I love to start with things that are easy.
Yes.
The world is hard enough.
Yeah.
And even that 1 minute meditation, even if you're planning your next thing if you can walk away from that saying, I did it, I
Yes.
committed to this thing and I did it, that's gonna land in your nervous system as success, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, even if the experience of it wasn't like, life-changing, life-altering,
Sublime.
just right, sublime. But
Yeah.
just knowing that I set a goal that I could accomplish and I accomplished it
Yeah.
gives your nervous system uh, a sense of success, and that's important. Yeah. In a world that's mostly overwhelming.
Mostly. Yeah. Most of the
Mostly
time.
overwhelming.
Increasingly so, I might say.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So I'm curious about global high and how it's different from hyperarousal, right? We talk about hyperarousal and post-traumatic stress. Do you see
Mm.
a differentiation there that's important?
That's a good question. A hyperarousal to me speaks of something happened. My my physiology didn't get to complete its blueprint for self-protection.
Mm,
We all have a blueprint for self-protection that has these like very distinct phases. I first orient towards the threat. Then I will use if I've had the good fortune of growing up in safety and attunement, I'll band together with those around me to figure out the solution. If that doesn't work, I go into fight, flight, or freeze. And then I'm able to survive the thing, and then completion happens, and I can come back to a state of relaxed alertness. If that blueprint gets interrupted anywhere along its response, which is so often true in today's world, then the body really doesn't get the message that the threat is over.
yeah.
And so it remains in this sort of continuous threat response because it thinks the threat is around the corner. And I have now a bigger startle response. And now I'm less oriented to the here and now because my physiology is preoccupied with threat response. Global high remains in place even even in the aftermath of having responded to a threat.
Yeah.
It's been established. It's often established when the physiology has to navigate between uh, competing impulses for survival.
Mm,
Like, do I act or do I freeze? Do
yeah.
I scream or do I play dead?
Yeah.
Those kinds of competing impulses can cause this sort of global response, and then it's not about completion, but about the navigation of what is safety, what is threat, what is baseline, and it just shows up differently. So it's a little bit nuanced. That's how I understand it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
A little bit of a different flavor.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're talking about the freeze response too, and shutting down or collapse, all these kind of stages that we go through in response to threat and trauma. I'm wondering how dissociation folds in. Well, actually, let me rephrase that because I
Mhm.
think we can talk about a lot of things when we talk about the freeze response, and dissociation is one of those. But when, to use the analogy we love to use, the car analogy of the gas and the brake,
Mhm.
if something happens that's traumatic and overwhelming and someone gets to that freeze collapse, and let's just say like the brake is on, the parking brake is on, like
Mhm.
their system has been told to shut down, and
Mhm.
that maybe there's some dissociation that's not integrated, right? That story,
Mhm.
that experience was so overwhelming, it's sort of in its own compartment in the brain or in memory or in identity, like people don't really fully remember or connect with what
Yeah,
happened. I'm curious about the relationship between that and global high. Like people have to find a way to function in the world.
yeah.
And so it's like the gas goes on full speed ahead because it's like that's the only way to move with the parking brake on. And
Mhm.
they might feel internally a lot of heaviness or depressive
Mhm.
symptoms,
Mhm.
even though there's this sense of I can't rest, I'm going all the time.
Mhm.
In yoga, we'd call it rajasic depression. It's like the energy, this rajas, this heat, this movement
Mhm.
with the feeling of heaviness or with
Mhm.
the feeling of, oh, I can't get myself off the couch at the same time, even though I have to keep always doing things. Physically, I think it might manifest in different ways, but I'm thinking about that internal experience of go, go, go. And if you see it, also connecting with that shutdown response. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah. And so when
Yeah.
people start to address the go, go, what's there can be really challenging too to start to digest
Yeah. I
physically.
mean, one of the ways that a nervous system, a physiology, or an organism might learn to navigate this constant go, 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 go thing
Mhm.
is by pushing a little bit further,
Yeah.
because then you reach a point of no return where the physiology takes over and the dorsal brakes come on and it's energy conservation time, right? So for folks who have had to navigate global high physiology for a long time, sometimes the only way to find some rest, to, to drop into the parasympathetic is through this highway of freeze.
Yeah.
And it's like my system has been go, 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 go for so long,
Mm.
and I can't find a space for rest. And so this motor is just gonna speed up, speed up, speed up, speed up, and then the heart brakes come on,
Yeah.
right? And when it gets to that point, when the only way to navigate a balance between activation and rest becomes high activation freeze, high activation freeze, that's really when we see the functional organs begin to break down.
Yeah.
Because both of those systems, the high mobilization system and the hard break system, were designed for extreme threat.
Yeah.
And they were meant to be short-lived.
Yeah.
And now we're using that system just to find rhythmicity,
Yeah.
and that can cause a lot of wear and tear
Mm.
on our functional organs. And that's when we begin to see things like chronic digestive issues, autoimmune issues, fibromyalgia, chronic pain issues, and chronic inflammation. That's when that begins to show up.
Yes. And I know we have so many different models of the nervous system that we can kind of integrate together in this work. But what's coming to mind is just from, 1999 at UCLA, right before you and I had our bad years. Dan Siegel's window of tolerance, right? And
Yes.
and I just see the waves. There's the window in the middle, and then there's like way up and way
Yeah,
down and being stuck up here and being stuck down there,
exactly.
hyper and hypo, and the window being, oh, I'm just gonna relax, have a cup of tea.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
also makes me think of bipolar diagnoses and experiences that people have and differentiating that. Is there anything that you've noticed from that somatic standpoint? I've worked with people who've had bipolar diagnoses and they have very different flavors sometimes. Sometimes I'm just like, this just feels like a trauma response, right? And other times I'm like, no, this feels different. There's something else.
Yeah, there's a chemical thing going on.
There's
Yeah.
something else going on here. It doesn't feel so much just like normally if I'm working with someone, they have a trauma history, I know their history, and there's a trigger. They know the moment that they went into hyper was because they watched a movie that reminded them of when they were in
Mm,
school. Or then they go into more of a hypo state and they were really exhausted and they were drained and they were parenting and then somebody said something unkind and whatever it
mhm.
is. I'm sort of making up scenarios and putting them together, but I think that can be a challenge for mental health providers to discern. So I'm wondering if you've come across conversations or tools for mental health providers listening to help differentiate that. Is that something that's come up in?
Gosh, this is a tough question for me because
You don't
I
have to have
feel,
the answer.
I
I'm just
know,
thinking
I
out
know
loud
that.
and wondering.
No, I'm just thinking about, every now and then I get reminded of how much somatic experiencing has changed the way I view
Mm,
diagnosis of any
yes.
kind,
Or just, yeah, knowledge of
Yeah.
trauma and all of a sudden.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes the diagnosis is helpful in terms of like my clients really find a lot of relief with knowing what it is. It has a name, and here's the, here's the guidelines around it, here's the criteria for it. That can feel like some relief for my clients. But for me, it just muddies the waters.
Yeah.
My stance usually is like if the diagnosis is helpful to you, that's great.
Yeah.
My work doesn't change. I am doing nervous system regulation work.
Yeah.
My aim is to give you some tools for explicit self-regulation at first, so that you can tap into this rhythmicity a little bit more. You can find these tools that can help you shift gears out of hypervigilance into something else, or deep freeze into some mobilization. And then I'm looking out for whether these tools are going to help your physiology remember its
Mm.
rhythmicity.
Yeah.
And I found that with somatic experiencing is not a cure-all for all for
Yeah.
all illness and all diagnoses.
Yeah.
But I feel like nervous system regulation work doesn't hurt anyone. It can
Hmm.
help, right? No matter
Yeah.
what your diagnoses, knowing more about your nervous system response, knowing more about what happens in threat response, knowing how your trauma history has impacted your symptoms can be helpful.
Yeah.
And then, in 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to look at your diagnoses and the symptoms again and see if they're still there, if they're still as strong. And sometimes they are, and sometimes we need medication, and sometimes it's a chemical thing that has nothing to do with your trauma history. And other times you find a lot of relief just having learned these tools and having tapped into a different rhythm in your nervous system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you wish everyone knew about their nervous system?
Oh gosh. I think I would want everyone to know that the answers are all right there.
Yeah.
Like it's not something that comes from the outside.
Yeah.
Like that innate rhythm is our birthright, and it's just waiting for us to connect to it, you
Yeah.
know? And the world will have you believe that your trauma response, your trauma rhythm is your innate rhythm.
Yes.
The world may make you feel like that's how you were wired. You were not, and there is something else possible.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love about somatic experiencing is that it's in its basis, it's an empowerment approach. I often refer to myself as someone with a flashlight. We're
Hmm.
just looking, we're just looking for, because something is working, otherwise you wouldn't be in my office. You wouldn't be in my classroom. Something is working.
Yes.
And together we're going to find out where things are actually working. And that's where we're going to pay attention. And that's what we're going to reinforce so you can have more and more of that.
Yeah. So I'm noticing we're talking about somatic experiencing, and there might be folks listening. I mean, some people are mental health professionals, they're familiar with it, but some people might be like, what is that? So how do you explain somatic experience to someone who's new to it?
Okay, here's my like 30-second elevator
Yes, go.
spiel. Somatic experiencing is a modality we use to help folks who've had pervasive stress
Yes.
in their lives
Yeah.
or trauma,
Yeah.
where the nervous system holds some part of those experiences. It was developed by Peter Levine, Dr. Peter Levine. And I mean, basically what it means is that we're including the body in the conversation. We're
Yes.
including the nervous system in the conversation. It's a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down approach. Not that, there's no talking in a somatic experiencing session, not that your thoughts and meaning making doesn't matter, but we're just making space for the body to tell us the story of whatever it is that you're struggling through,
Yeah.
either presently or in the past.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
rather than going from words and meaning making to somewhere else or to the body, you're letting the body sort of inform the
Yeah,
conversation if there's a
yeah,
conversation happening.
yeah, Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You mentioned extreme stress or trauma. So I'm wondering if you feel like specifically global high, does it feel like that's always a trauma response? Do you see it come from other things ever?
I mean, trauma and pervasive stress,
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah,
Yeah.
folks who grow up in unsafe conditions, in
Yeah.
chaotic conditions, and violent conditions can have that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And have you noticed ever like certain people or characteristics, predispositions I mean, we all have a nervous system, right? But I'm wondering about hormones. Obviously cortisol's involved here. I wonder if there's anything you've seen of folks who are more likely to get stuck in global high versus folks who maybe aren't.
Um, I'm probably not the best person to speak on hormones and all of that, but
Yeah.
I know that there can be generational impact. There can be kind of
Mm,
historical generational impact and trauma in their history, in their generational history. And so uh, that definitely shows up. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's an important piece, intergenerational trauma. And I know there's, people doing great epigenetic research on that, and you can kind
that's
of
right.
look to them
Yeah,
to guide us.
yeah, yeah,
You told
yeah.
a story. I heard you tell a story about your relationship to the mountains, and I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us today.
Uh, yeah, I grew up in Tehran, Iran. I spent 0 to 10 there, and Tehran is surrounded by mountains. And so, we're in a valley, and everywhere you look, especially to the north, you can see the mountains at all times of the year. So they've been part of the landscape of my life growing up. And then my family left Iran through those mountains.
Yeah.
And that was obviously an ordeal and a big, scary event in my family's history. And then kind of subconsciously, I had avoided mountains. I mean, it wasn't an active, I'm not going to, but the area we ended up in was pretty flat and uh, we weren't skiers or hikers, at the time. And then I come to San Diego and I, establish my life here and I get married and I have kids and I'm in school and I become a therapist. And in an effort to take care of my body more, I'm exercising. I started walking and um, I, eventually it was like walking is not enough and I'm not a runner, so I'm going to start hiking. And I'm looking out there because there's mountains around my house right now
Yeah.
that I can see from my window. And I was like, I want to go find hiking trails. And I, became an avid hiker. And one day I came home from a hike and I'd gone out before sunrise. And my husband, my current husband, was sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee. And I burst through the door and I was like, oh my God. It was glorious out there. Like the sun came up and I was above the clouds and it was all pinks and purples. And I just feel so energized. I was just going off. And he's just like looking at me. And he goes, wow, you don't even remember being afraid of mountains, huh? And I go,
Wow.
oh, because him and I, one of our first trips we took together was to Mammoth Mountains for skiing.
Wow.
And we hit those mountains. It was my very first time skiing. And the road up, I was like, I'll explain this later. I'm gonna close my eyes
Yeah.
while we drive up because I was feeling so much anxiety, so
Yeah.
much anxiousness, just and then, bunny hills that weekend. Like I just couldn't, you know. And he was just like, wow, you don't even remember. And it was really this kind of like, oh. Right. That used to be a thing.
Yeah.
And it was surprising because my fear of mountain had never been something that I'd processed in all those years in somatic experiencing therapy, right? But something about the overall activation in my system had reduced enough to uncouple this beautiful, majestic element
Yeah.
from my trauma response. And so the activation that informed that anxiety just wasn't present anymore. And I had, going back to connection and curiosity, I had that available. I had the curiosity of what would it be like to go hiking in these mountains
Yes.
and connecting to the joy of that activity, That's not available when you're in trauma response.
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah,
If it is a global high, you just go, go, go. And if it is like a very real experience of fear or however it's in there, if we're not addressing it, the trigger is going to continue to bring up that feeling.
that's right.
There's so much richness in that story. I think of, first of all, I just think of one person's trigger is another person's resource. I love the mountains all the time when people talk about resourcing. My examples are always nature and animals. And I'm very aware because I've had clients that are triggered by going out alone in nature, that are triggered, but they've had unsafe experiences
Yeah.
with animals too. So it's like there's never a thing that is by definition a resource or by
No.
definition a trigger. Like we have to
Yeah,
find, there's kind of categories that feel safer in general,
totally.
but
Yeah.
there's always exceptions, right? And so it's like it's there's there's no category that we can place things in, and it's not about the trigger itself. Like the
Right.
mountains were the thing that you wanted to hide from driving up to man,
Yeah.
and all of the work that you did in your nervous system just shifted that. You didn't
Yeah.
to focus. It was never the mountains itself. It was the
Right.
relationship to them. It was the history with them. It was how that was living alive in your body
That's
in a
right.
continuous way that maybe you weren't conscious of until you started going, oh, those 5 minutes in the car really felt nice. Like what else?
Yes.
What else? Pathway to becoming a SE trainer, right?
That's
Is
right.
you just kept going, what? How much better could this get? Let me just keep
Right.
snipping in this direction.
Yeah.
And there's so much possibility, I think, in that for folks listening or folks working with trauma. It's like, I think we can get myopic sometimes with trauma, like really focusing in on the thing
Yeah.
or the dynamic.
Yeah.
And I love body-based work because it's like, well, what's happening right now while you're talking about that, right?
Mhm.
Like what's happening in this moment in response to that association, that story, that memory.
That's right.
And sometimes what's happening in our bodies is amazing, like remembering that, oh, I was out in the morning and the moon and the mountains. Like we can resource through that
Yeah.
for sure, but we can also give space to digest or process, and especially with a caring other person to like let some of these high stress or fear or trauma responses have their moment, have their moment of recognition and process and move through and not be this background, seemingly end all be all truth that we're living every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Just what else? Just that question, what else is there? I
Yeah.
ask that so often in session where folks are really preoccupied by the siren of the trauma. It's like, oh, there's this memory, oh, there's this person, or there's this pain, or there's this contraction in my system. And just saying, yes, there's that. And what else is there?
Yeah.
It just allows for one of the people she used to be a student and then became an assistant at one of my trainings, said this thing that I often think about and use, which is curiosity is the antidote to trauma response.
Mm,
Like as soon as you're able to go, yes, and what else? You're shifting into something other than that threat response,
yes.
Curiosity is not available to us in the midst of survival.
Yes.
And yeah, that's I feel like the gift of any body-based approach is to like expand that lens and go, yes, there is this really upsetting thing. And what else is there? What other information does my body have for me?
Yes. I'm thinking of a client who was very activated and just saying, we're having very different experiences right now, like trying to leave room or like we're in the same room, same environment. And what's happening in your nervous system is very different from what's
Mhm.
happening in mine. And we're making very different meaning,
Yeah,
right? It's like
yeah,
a little bit of just opportunity for more than one
Totally.
perspective, maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's hard when we're
Um,
in a defense response. They're there, those defenses are there for a reason, right? And
oh,
they
they've been good friends.
save
Yes,
our lives. And so it's like,
absolutely.
I'm not going to let that go really easy
Right.
just because you said you have a different experience, but
That's right.
that
Yeah.
curiosity as the shift.
Yeah.
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 So I'm curious too, just about your contrast between, I know it was 0 to 10 that you're in Iran, and it sounds like Germany after that for a good chunk of time, and in the
10
US.
to 20.
Yeah. So what strong contrasts of culture in your nervous system and in your life experience? I'm wondering if you can speak to particularly the relationship to the body that you notice, like any cultural practices that you see. You were talking about how in Iran it was integrated. It was like a
Hmm.
re-knowing of, oh, this is my body. Do you feel like that was more facilitated by culture? Was that also, I mean, obviously in the story you're telling, the transition through the mountains was a huge traumatic experience for you and your family, and then there's after that. So I don't, none of us is going to give a completely neutral read of any culture.
Hmm.
But what do you see in these different cultures that maybe encourages global high? You're talking about capitalism earlier,
Hmm.
or encourages connection to our present moment embodied experience.
Yeah. I mean, I remember in Iran now it was also a very different time,
Yeah,
early 70s, 1970s, right?
yeah,
Before the age of internet and 24-hour television and all of that. But my family, we lived in my grandmother's house, my grandparents' house, from 0 to 6. And it was a multi-generational household with aunts and grandparents and my parents and my great grandmother and even the aunts and uncles who had, married and moved on, their kids would, my grandmother was like our daycare
yeah.
every day. The parents would go to work and the cousins would all get together.
Nice.
And my grandma cooked meals for the whole family, for everybody, right? That was her task every morning is to get up, get us fed, start cooking the meals, doing some cleaning. And I just remember that that woman napped every day of the night.
Yes,
Like the
celebrate that.
whole household had to go down at 1 p.m. It's like
Yes.
it's after lunch, there is 1 hour rest. Kids don't play, kids lay down. You can lay down with a book, you can lay down with a coloring page, but the house shuts down for an hour,
Yeah.
right? That's rhythm.
Yes.
That's rhythm. She was a busy woman. She
Yeah.
had a big household to run, right?
Yeah.
But that 1 hour nap was every day, every single day, right? And then in the afternoons when the family came home, it wasn't like we were all sitting around the television. It was like, oh no, now it's afternoon tea time. And everyone gets together in the backyard and we sit around the samovar and we drink tea and my grandpa might smoke a pipe or whatever. It's just like it's downtime, it's
Yeah.
playtime, it's connection time, right? And so I go from that to my family moved out of that house when my mom became pregnant with my second sister
Mm.
at the height of the revolution.
Mm.
And so now we're on our own, and there's this big, scary thing happening out in the world,
Yeah.
right? And we're trying to navigate that. How does work and play look like
Yeah.
in a place that's increasingly more violent and dangerous? And so you become a little bit tighter, and you become a little bit more, your threat response kind of doesn't get to let up.
Yeah.
And then, my mom had a second baby. Then the war with Iraq started. And like things got increasingly to a place where life became not sustainable in Iran for my family. And so we made the pilgrimage. We made the escape through the mountains into Turkey at first, and then with the help of family members into Germany. And Germany has a very different character,
Yeah.
culture, work ethic.
Yeah.
This post World War II Germany is very much focused on doing
Yeah.
when it's doing time.
Mm.
So, you go to school, you have to excel at school. As a refugee, as an immigrant, even more so, right? You have to prove yourself. You can't be lazy. You can't fall behind. It's just this go, 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 go. And then the work, for my parents, the work was kind of a constant in that vein of not falling behind, in that vein of making it in this new place.
Yeah.
But as you said, even there in Germany, Sundays, everything shut down,
Yeah.
you know. Sunday was rest day, and the vacation times in Europe are famous. If you have a full-time job, you get 4 weeks of vacation. That's just a given. People would take 4 weeks at a time in the summer and just go to the Mediterranean, go to Spain, go to Italy, go to Greece. And so that's a different rhythm, but
Yeah.
there's still a rhythm.
Yes.
And then I came here, and Germany has changed since the early 80s. Like, there's a lot of stores open now
Yeah.
on Sundays. Restaurants are open, bakeries are open, coffee shops are open. Really used to be everything was shut down,
Yeah.
even grocery stores open for a few hours here and there. And so their system has changed. And then I come here, and it's, college and language classes and, making it again in a different way, and capitalism. And, it's like I worked in sales while I was in college. There's no weekends in sales. There's long hours until 10 p.m. You're at work at the mall. So it was just like a different level of go, 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 which my system was really accustomed to.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it worked
Like, oh,
well
I get
for
this.
me.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's keep
It's like, oh
going.
yeah, yeah, I can work a full-time job, and I can go to school, and oh yeah, I can get married and have a couple of kids and be in grad school, no problem.
And like you said, it's rewarded in this culture.
Oh
Wow,
yeah,
Superwoman, how do you do it? You're
totally.
amazing. Look at how
Yeah.
much you can accomplish, right? I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
seeing an ad for a gym on a billboard on the way to teach yoga, and the ad for the gym just said, do more. Rolled up to the yoga studio, like, that is not our agenda for today, everyone, just so you know.
Yeah, do more. That's so funny. That's so
We're going to
true.
do less today.
Yeah.
We are
And
doing yoga, but
then,
we're going to rest a lot.
yeah. And I often reflect back and think, thank God there was no social media when I was a new mom. Like,
Mm,
thank God there was no social
mm,
media when
mhm.
my kids were little,
Yeah, yeah,
because now the world of social media has you believing that everyone is doing that much, and their house is perfectly clean, and their
right.
vacations are immaculate, and their children are always well behaved and cute,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And it's like, it's just the level of intensity is just increasing and not decreasing. And then there comes so much guilt and shame with stepping off of that
yeah,
hamster wheel,
yeah,
whatever the hamster wheel may be, whether it's, you know, training after training after training after training, whether it's new degrees, whether it's
yeah.
new work projects, whether it's hobbies. Even hobbies have become intense,
Right.
whether it's activism. It's like do more, do more, do more.
Yeah, yeah,
And when you step off of it, it feels backwards.
yeah,
It feels like I'm doing something wrong. It
yeah,
feels like uh, I'm gonna get left behind, or I'm leaving behind something or some cause or some community. I'm having that conversation a lot these days with folks, where it's like, yeah, your nervous system really was designed for a village where everyone knew your name,
yes,
where people were ready to help, where you knew if something bad happened to a village member and you had the capacity to respond. It wasn't meant to have the world's news at your fingertips in your pocket at all times.
yeah, yeah. If there was an event, it was someone you knew or someone
Right.
who you knew someone who knew them, and
Yeah.
you would use the activation response to probably go and help or help the people who are helping until
Right.
the crisis is hopefully resolved.
Right.
And then you would go back to daily rhythm and daily
Yeah,
life.
exactly.
Yeah. And we can't do that if we pick up our phone or open a browser with news. It's like we're getting all the information as if, oh, this happened to your neighbor, this happened to your neighboring country, this happened on the other side of the world, but we're getting all the details of it without the physical access to walk over there and go, hey, are you okay? What can I do? Which I
Right.
think is a very human
Right.
response. Hey, are you doing all right? Like if something happens on our block, people come outside, they look, they gather, they go,
Right.
we need to help. Do we need to call? What do we need to do? And I think that's like the closest we can get to
Yeah.
how we evolved, right? And but now so much of what we're digesting is we're digesting the nervous system of the world through technology.
Right.
And so much of that is curated in different ways,
Right.
whether it's, well, I want to make sure you click this headline, so I'm going to make it really sensational, or it's, oh, I really
Hmm.
want to look good in this picture, so I'm going to put an extra filter, or I'm going to
Right.
put an AI background with a clean house or whatever. Right? Like, and with AI, that adds so much more because it's not even just a polished
Yeah.
picture. Sometimes we don't even know if it's real, or we don't even
That's
know
right.
if it's that
Yeah.
person in
Yeah.
honest truth. So there's so many layers to technology. So I get why you're saying I'm glad that wasn't an element back
Oh
then.
my gosh. Yeah.
And one of the things I find working with people is that boundary with technology can be an important part of regulating your nervous system, right? Because it
Hmm.
does, even though it's this tiny little box and screen that you touch within a few inches, it can still, you can open a social media app or news, or even just see a notification and have a
Hmm.
whole nervous system response based on what that means. You can see a
Yeah.
text. I mean, I do
Yeah.
a modality called deep brain reorienting, and we're always looking for that first moment of shock, and the amount of
Yeah.
times it's someone's name on a phone,
Oh yeah.
text showing up, and this
Yeah.
full body shock response
Yeah. Yeah.
comes up. And I imagine most people can relate to that. It's a everyday thing these days, but it's so
Absolutely.
different than what our bodies have been
Yeah.
in history.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm in like I'm teaching all over the place, but as you said, shocking things are have become part of our everyday life.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'll go on a break and I come back and I go, what happened?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because people saw some news headline on their phone and it's palpable in the room.
Hmm.
Because even though I cannot walk over to help, your nervous system is still going to feel like it wants to or it has to.
Yeah. Oh, I got to do something. There's this
Right,
emergency happening. There's
right,
a war on the other side of the world.
right,
Genocide in that country
right,
that would take 12 hours to fly to. Like
right.
we're feeling it
It feels like it's
close,
imminent and it's here and I have to respond.
and we don't have that physical
Right,
access to do it. I mean, we can find pathways maybe through technology or other things,
right, right.
but then we're still just having all of this input on such a large scale.
Yeah,
That's a lot to digest. It's a lot to try and
yeah.
manage.
And then I connect that to that level of threat response. A hallmark of it is disconnection.
Yeah.
A hallmark of it is that now you're less present to your life. Now you're less present to yourself. Now you're less present to your family. Now you're less
Yeah.
present to your work,
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah, that's
Yeah, there's so much power in. I find myself, in so much of what we're talking about, I find myself really having to anchor into like what's actually happening for me right now.
hmm.
Right? So even we were talking about different cultures. I remember when I started being self-employed and having a private practice, I felt like I had to work 9 to 5. Like if I couldn't, like I felt like I couldn't rest between those hours because then I was, some
Yeah,
conditioned like, well, you're not working. But if I don't have a client for an hour, I can lie down. That's fine. Like it took me time for my nervous system to be like, yeah,
yeah,
you can, even if there's email or other stuff you could be doing, if you're tired, if like you can find a rhythm
totally.
that's different, you can slow down. And in what you're talking about right now, of like how we can mentally, I think of it as this like dive into technology. Our brain just like wires to this
Hmm.
whole network of other things that are
Hmm.
not happening for us right now.
Right.
right? And are very interestingly curated in terms of what you see when you log in.
Yeah.
So it's like the amount of times that I just find myself like, oh, actually, everything's really nice right now. Like,
Yeah, right here, right now.
and I think that skill, like that awareness and that skill, is not something we're taught. It's something that's increasingly important, right? Because
Yeah.
of the way the world has shifted. But unless we're in somatic experiencing or maybe Tai Chi or meditation or yoga worlds where there's this really present moment focused practice, we probably won't even notice if we're in global high and we're just going all the time and we're
Oh, I had no
doing,
idea.
yeah, right? You're like, this is great. I'm getting work done.
Yeah, I had
Until
no
we have
idea
a
something
different
else was possible.
until we
Yeah.
have a different experience in our body, we don't have an appreciation for that. So,
Yeah.
what's the word that your assistant used? The curiosity question.
Is the antidote to trauma
Yeah.
response. Yeah.
Curiosity is the antidote. And so, what else could be true right now? What else
Yeah.
could be true right now? Or you also said, well, what does play look like? What does that feel like? I feel like this curiosity about how our nervous systems could experience rest and play
Yeah.
and joy and any of
Yeah.
is a really important ongoing conversation. And I get a lot of questions from people about just collective trauma and the trauma of the news and how do we manage that. And like, we really take ownership of our own nervous system because this stuff can
Hmm.
hijack it. So I'm wondering if you have any other thoughts or little threads people can follow just to
Hmm.
connect with their own nervous system in the moment.
I just want to make sure that I'm not being misunderstood. I'm not saying that we ignore all of that for
Yeah.
the sake of our nervous system, right? For me, it's so much about balance. It's like if I just do that deep dive and continue doing that at all hours of day and night,
Yes.
then I'm actually not available to respond in the ways that I want to all of these tragedies. I took a hiatus from social media for a year, a
Mm,
couple of years ago, and it was remarkable because on the outside, it might look like, oh, Mahshid is disconnecting,
yeah.
right? She's taking herself out of the equation, she's disconnecting. I actually found that I was more connected in that time
Yeah.
and not less. I would check the news in the morning
Yeah.
while having breakfast. I would respond in the ways that I wanted to respond, maybe donate some money here, maybe share an article with my family members on the family thread. And then I would go about my day and actually be present to my clients doing healing work that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And I would go to classrooms and I would have the reach of to 50, 60 people in the room that I could teach the skills to and know that they're going to go out into their communities and that's going to have a ripple effect.
Mm,
And then maybe at lunchtime, I would get on the phone and check with my family, like, how are the kids doing? How's my husband doing? How's the world doing? And that would be it, you
yeah.
know? And then I would come home and make a meal and we would have family dinner together. And there wasn't this constant, oh, how did my post do? Oh, how did this person respond to my message? That element just wasn't there. And I found that I actually helped me be the kind of activist I wanted to be.
Yes.
Present, focused,
Yes.
um, small community, like what are the causes that actually matter to me,
Mm,
that I actually feel like I can speak to,
mm.
without getting an additional degree, which is some of these causes need an additional degree.
This is true. This is
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
There's so much wisdom in everything you're sharing. So I want to thank you for sharing that with us today and your
Thank
personal
you, Lisa.
experiences too. I know there's so much depth to any of our histories, but the stories that
Thank
you're
you.
telling, there's so much there. So I want to thank you and just honor that experience that your family went through, which is really significant. Have you been back to Iran? Has that
I
been
have not.
for you? Wow.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a deep wound still.
I
It's
bet.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
and it's I'm not sure that the conditions will be such that I will be able to go back in my lifetime.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that is getting stirred up these days a lot, which is like, structural change like that in a country.
Yeah.
Once it takes hold, it's not easily reversed.
Yeah.
My country has been under occupation really for 46 years now.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's a whole other podcast.
It is. Next time.
Yeah.
Next time. But I do want to just honor the truth and the impact of that for you and for other people who've experienced, a very similar journey or a different
Yeah,
flavor of that.
millions of people. Yeah.
Millions of people, yeah, who can't be in their home for
Yeah.
political reasons. And so just honoring that as we wrap up today, because it feels really important. We can
Yeah.
tell stories, and I do think your relationship to the mountains is a beautiful story, but I know there's so much depth to that. So for you and for anyone listening who's been through something that pivotal and impactful in their lives, I just want to honor that.
I appreciate that, Lisa. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
So I'm sure folks listening are going to be interested in your work and where to find you. Where can people get in touch with you?
I think the easiest thing to do is mahshidhager.com. That's my website. You can contact me through that. I have a calendar of my upcoming trainings in there as well, consultations that I offer. So that's probably the easiest thing to do. And then if anyone is interested in somatic experiencing, their website is traumahealing.org.
Yes.
And you can search trainings by your location.
Yeah,
by
we'll
your
put the
region.
links in the show notes too.
Yeah.
Anything specific coming up for you want to share other than the trainings on your website?
No, just gearing up for the holidays. There's it's my schedule is rhythmic as well. There's a busy
Yes.
season and I'm looking forward to the end of that coming up here in November. So
Nice.
yeah, looking forward to settling down in the winter. Yeah.
Celebrating that rest and downtime
Yes,
for you
trying
and for
to.
all of us in the winter.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Mahshid.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. Now, I'd really love to hear from you. What resonated with you in this episode? And what's on your mind and in your heart as we bring this conversation to a close? Email me at info@howwecanheal.com or share your answers and what's been healing for you in the comments on Instagram, where you'll find me at How We Can Heal. Don't forget to go to howwecanheal.com to sign up for email updates as well. You'll also find additional trainings, tons of free resources, and the full transcript of each and every show. If you love the show, please leave us a review on Apple, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and keep sharing the shows you love the most with all your friends. Visit howwecanheal.com/podcast to share your thoughts and ideas for the show. I always love hearing from you. Before we wrap up for today, I want to be super clear that this podcast isn't offering prescriptions. It's not advice, nor is it any kind of mental health treatment or diagnosis. Your decisions are in your hands, and I encourage you to consult with any healthcare professionals you may need to support you through your unique path of healing. In addition, everyone's opinion here is their own, and opinions can change. Guests share their thoughts, not that of the host or sponsors. I'd like to thank our guest today and everyone who helps support this podcast directly and indirectly. Alex, thanks for taking care of the babe and taking the fur babies out while I record. Last and never least, I'd like to give a special shout out to my big brother Matt, who passed away in 2002. He wrote this music, and it makes my heart so very happy to share it with you here.